The silent scream. Across the stars, Captain. Marcus Kane stood before the massive viewscreen aboard the UES Dominion, watching the final transmission from the Zilani homeworld flicker through space. The alien's 6 arms trembled as she spoke into the recording device, her crystalline skin dulled by exhaustion and terror. "This is High Counselor Vex Ana of the Zilani Federation," the transmission began, her voice carrying the musical quality typical of her species. "Our worlds burn under the assault of the Mordak horde. 17 colonies have fallen. Our children hide in underground shelters while their cities turn to ash above them." Marcus clenched his jaw as he watched the alien leader struggle to maintain composure. Behind her, explosions lit up the sky through towering windows of what had once been a magnificent council chamber. "We are not warriors," Vexana continued, her large eyes reflecting the fires consuming her world. "For 3,000 cycles, we have chosen the path of peace. We have no weapons of war, no fleets of destruction. We offer knowledge, art, and healing to any who would aid us. But the Mordak show no mercy." The transmission flickered as another bombardment shook the building. Vexana steadied herself against the communications console. "To any civilization receiving this message, we beg you, do not let our culture die with us. Remember that we tried to build instead of destroy, to heal instead of harm. If you cannot save us, please ensure the galaxy remembers who we were." The message ended abruptly as the council chamber erupted in flames. Commander Rachel Torres turned from her station, her face grim. "Sir, that transmission reached Earth 3 days ago. The Colonial Defense Committee is still debating whether to respond." Marcus studied the tactical display showing the Zilani system. The Mordak horde had swept through 12 star systems in 6 months, enslaving populations and strip-mining worlds. Their black ships moved like locusts across space, leaving nothing but dead rocks in their wake. "What's our current status?" Marcus asked. "The 5th Fleet is at full combat readiness," Torres replied. 18 heavy cruisers, 42 destroyers, and support vessels. Admiral Harrison is waiting for political approval to engage." In the depths of space, the Mordak command ship Bone Crusher drifted among the ruins of Zilani Prime's orbital stations. War Chief Gorthok studied the planet below through his ship's sensors, watching his ground forces methodically destroy the remaining cities. "The aliens fight like frightened children," he growled to his second-in-command. "No strategy, no weapons worth mentioning. This conquest brings no honor." His aide bowed low. "War Chief, our scouts report 17 more systems in this region, all inhabited by similar weak species." Gorthak smiled, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. "Then we shall feast well in the coming cycles." Unknown to the Mordak, humanity had been watching. And humanity remembered every species that had ever asked for help. When humanity chooses war, Admiral Jessica Harrison paced the command center of Luna Station, Earth's primary military headquarters. The emergency session of the Colonial Defense Committee had been raging for 6 hours, with politicians arguing over the wisdom of intervening in an alien conflict. "We have no strategic interest in that region of space," Senator Bradley insisted, his voice echoing through the chamber's speakers. "Our resources should protect human colonies, not alien refugees." Harrison stopped pacing and activated her communication link. "Senator, with respect, when did protecting innocent lives become a matter of strategic interest?" The chamber fell silent. Through the massive windows of Luna Station, Earth hung like a blue jewel against the star field, peaceful and secure because humanity had learned to fight for what mattered. Director James Walsh of Colonial Intelligence stood and activated a holographic display. The star map showed the Mordak advance as a spreading crimson stain across the galaxy. "The Mordak horde operates on a simple principle," Walsh explained. Conquest, enslavement, resource extraction. They've consumed 47 star systems in the past decade. If we allow them to continue, they'll eventually reach human space. Captain Kane's voice crackled through the communication system from his position aboard the Dominion. Admiral, I've reviewed the Mordak fleet composition. They rely on overwhelming numbers and brutal tactics, but their ships are outdated. Our technology gives us a significant advantage. Harrison studied the tactical assessment on her personal display. The Mordak possessed nearly 300 warships, but most were converted. Cargo vessels with improvised weapons. Their strategy depended on intimidating weaker species into surrender. How long until the Zilani homeworld falls completely? She asked. Intelligence estimates 18 hours, maybe less, Walsh replied. Their resistance is collapsing. In the debate chamber, the arguments continued. Some representatives feared the cost of military intervention. Others worried about setting a precedent that would drag humanity into every galactic conflict. But Harrison had made her decision. I'm invoking Emergency Protocol 7, she announced, her voice cutting through the political noise. The Fifth Fleet will deploy immediately to the Zilani system. The chamber erupted in protests, but Harrison continued speaking. The Colonial Defense Act grants military command the authority to respond to immediate threats to galactic stability. The Mordak Horde represents exactly that threat. Senator Bradley's face reddened with anger. Admiral, you're exceeding your authority. This decision should be made by elected representatives. Harrison turned to face the camera that broadcast her words to Earth and the colonies. Senator, while you've been debating, an entire civilization is dying. History will judge us not by our caution, but by our courage. She activated the Fleet Communication Network, broadcasting to every ship in the Fifth Fleet. This is Admiral Harrison to all vessels. We have received a distress call from the Zilani Federation. A peaceful species is facing extinction at the hands of the Mordak Horde. Some will question why humans should risk their lives for aliens we've never met. She paused, thinking of her own daughter safe in the Mars colonies. The answer is simple. We fight because someone must. We fight because peace without the strength to defend it is just a pretty lie. And we fight because, when innocents cry out for help, humanity answers. The fleet began moving within the hour, their fusion drives blazing trails across the dark of space. The fleet arrives, thunder in the void. The Fifth Fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zilani system, like avenging angels emerging from the depths of hell. Captain Kane stood on the bridge of the Dominion, watching the tactical displays. Populate with enemy contacts. My God, whispered Lieutenant Commander Sarah Blake, the ship's tactical officer. Look what they've done. The once beautiful Zilani homeworld was a scarred wasteland. Orbital cities that had gleamed like jewels now tumbled through space as burning debris. The planet's surface was pockmarked with craters where the Mordak had bombarded population centers. Sir, I'm reading 237 Mordak vessels, reported Lieutenant David Chen from the sensor station. They're spread across the system in hunting formations. Kane studied the enemy deployment with a professional eye. The Mordak had made a fatal mistake. They were scattered, picking through the remains of Zilani civilization like scavengers. They weren't expecting a fight. Admiral Harrison to all ships, came the fleet commander's voice over the communication network. The Zilani are still broadcasting from underground shelters. There are survivors down there, and we're going to make sure they stay that way. War Chief Gorthak received the alert on his flagship just as the human fleet began its attack run. His tactical display showed 18 large vessels approaching at impossible speed, their energy signatures unlike anything in the Mordak database. What species dares to challenge us? He roared at his communications officer. The response came in clear, unaccented galactic standard. This is Admiral Jessica Harrison of the Human Defense Fleet. You are ordered to cease hostilities and withdraw from this system immediately. This is your only warning. Gorthak laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Humans? Never heard of them. Another weak species come to die for aliens they don't even know. His laughter died as the first human salvo struck his outer patrol ships. The UES Retribution, Captain Monica Rivera commanding, opened fire first. Her ship's main particle cannon cut through a Mordak destroyer like a blade through paper, the enemy vessel exploding in a brilliant flash of superheated metal. "All ships, weapons free," Admiral Harrison commanded. "Show them why you don't threaten innocent people in human space." The battle that followed was less a fight than a systematic execution. The Mordak had grown accustomed to facing species that fought defensively, trying to minimize casualties and protect their own forces. Humans fought differently. Captain Kane watched the destroyer squadron, led by Commander Antonio Garcia aboard. The UES Thunder sliced through the Mordak formation like wolves among sheep. The human ships moved with perfect coordination, their captains communicating through quantum entanglement networks that allowed instantaneous tactical adjustments. "Target their command vessel," Kane ordered his weapons officer. "Maximum power." To forward batteries, the Dominion's heavy missiles streaked across space, their fusion warheads detonating against the Bone Crusher's hull in cascading explosions. Gorthak's flagship staggered under the assault, its armor plating buckling under forces it was never designed to withstand. On the surface of Zelani Prime, High Counselor Vexana emerged from her underground shelter to witness impossible sights. In the sky above, human fighters danced between the Mordak vessels like deadly fireflies, their particle beams carving through enemy armor with surgical precision. "They came," she whispered, her 6 arms trembling with emotion. "Someone actually came." The battle lasted only 4 hours, though the outcome was decided in the first 30 minutes. When the guns finally fell silent, over 200 Mordak vessels drifted as lifeless hulks through the Zelani system. Gorthak's final transmission reached his fleet commanders just before the Bone Crusher's reactor core breached. "The humans. Right like demons. They show no fear, no mercy. Warn the Horde. These creatures are not like the others. The price of peace when angels become demons." 3 days after the Battle of Zelani Prime, Admiral Harrison stood in the ruins of what had once been the planet's most beautiful city. Crystalline spires that had reached toward the stars now lay shattered, like broken glass. The air still carried the acrid smell of plasma fire and death. High Counselor Vexana approached with faltering steps, her crystalline skin bearing the scars of the bombardment. Behind her came a delegation of surviving Zelani leaders, their large eyes filled with gratitude and something else, fear. "Admiral Harrison," Vexana began, her musical voice barely above a whisper, "we cannot express our gratitude for what your people have done. You saved us from extinction." Harrison nodded grimly. "We came as fast as we could. I'm sorry we couldn't save more." The casualty reports were devastating. 43 million Zelani had died during the Mordak occupation. Entire bloodlines had been erased, their genetic libraries destroyed, their cities reduced to radioactive craters. Captain Kane joined the group, his uniform still bearing scorch marks from the boarding action that had captured the last Mordak command ship. In his hand, he carried a data pad containing intelligence that would change everything. "Admiral, you need to see this," he said quietly, pulling her aside. "We've decoded the Mordak fleet communications. This wasn't just a conquest. It was a test." Harrison's blood ran cold as she read the intercepted transmissions. The Mordak horde that had attacked Zelani Prime was merely the advanced scout of something much larger. The main Mordak fleet contained over 3,000 warships, and they were already moving toward the next target. "Where?" she asked. Kane pointed to the star charts on his datapad. "The Ethan Collective, 12 billion souls across 7 worlds. The main fleet arrives in 6 days." The Ethan were another peaceful species, philosophers and artists who had spent millennia perfecting their understanding of the universe. They had no military forces, no planetary defenses. They would die just as helplessly as the Zelani had been dying before humanity intervened. Commander Torres approached from the communication center she'd established in the ruined city. "Admiral, we're receiving requests for help from 17 different species. Word of our victory here has spread through the galactic communication networks." Harrison looked at the list of desperate pleas. The Kythera Republic, facing invasion from Mordac splinter fleets. The Harmony Worlds, where peaceful traders cowered in their homes as raiders stripped their planets bare. The Sanctuary Systems, where refugee populations from previous Mordac conquests waited helplessly for death. "How many ships do we have in operational condition?" Harrison asked. 14 heavy cruisers and 32 destroyers, Torres replied. "We lost the Cardiff and the Beijing in the battle, and 6 other ships need major repairs. Against 3,000 Mordac warships and dozens of smaller raider groups, it wasn't nearly enough." That evening, Harrison called a meeting of her senior captains aboard the Dominion. The ship's war room was filled with battle-hardened officers who had just witnessed what humans could accomplish when properly motivated. "We have a choice to make," Harrison began, her voice steady despite the weight of the decision. "We can return to Earth, report our victory, and let the politicians decide how to respond to the growing crisis. Or we can take the initiative." Captain Rivera leaned forward. "What are you suggesting, Admiral?" "I'm suggesting that we stop reacting and start acting. The Mordac understand only one language, violence. So we speak to them in terms they comprehend." She activated the holographic display, showing the positions of Mordac fleets throughout the sector. "We're going to hunt them down systematically. Every raider group, every occupation force, every advanced scout. We're going to teach the galaxy that attacking innocent people has consequences." Captain Kane studied the tactical situation with growing concern. "Admiral, we'll be operating far from human supply lines. No reinforcements, no support. If we lose ships, we can't replace them." Harrison's expression hardened. "Then we don't lose ships. We fight smarter, harder, and with more determination than any enemy can match. We become the nightmare that keeps Mordac commanders awake at night." The vote was unanimous. The Fifth Fleet would continue its campaign, carrying humanity's war against tyranny to every corner of the galaxy, where innocents cried out for protection. As the meeting ended, Harrison remained behind, staring at the star charts that showed the scope of their task. They were about to declare war on an empire that had conquered dozens of star systems, but humanity had never backed down from impossible odds before. The birth of legend, how humanity became the galaxy's guardian. 6 months after the Battle of Zelani Prime, the name Harrison's Hunters was whispered in fear throughout Mordac space. What had begun as a rescue mission had evolved into something unprecedented in galactic history. A systematic campaign to end an empire's reign of terror. Captain Kane stood on the bridge of the Dominion, watching the last Mordac stronghold in the Vega sector burn. The fortress that had once coordinated raids across 17 star systems was now an expanding cloud of superheated gas and twisted metal. "That's the 47th Mordac installation we've destroyed," reported Commander Torres, updating her tactical logs. "Intelligence estimates we've eliminated over 800 enemy vessels." The numbers told only part of the story. More important was what the Fifth Fleet had accomplished for the innocent species of the sector. The Ethan Collective had been saved when human ships arrived just hours before the main Mordac fleet. The Kythera Republic had been liberated from a brutal occupation. Dozens of smaller species had been freed from slavery and death. Admiral Harrison's voice crackled through the communication system from her flagship, the UES Liberator. "All ships, prepare for hyperspace jump. we've received another distress call. This time it came from the far edge of the galaxy, where a species called the Morphic had perfected the art of shapeshifting, but had never learned to fight. Slavers from the Crimson Syndicate were hunting them for the entertainment value of owning beings who could become anything. The fleet jumped within the hour. Back on Earth, the Colonial Defense Committee was in emergency session. Senator Bradley paced the chamber floor, waving reports and casualty lists. "Admiral Harrison has exceeded all authority," he declared. "She's turned our military into galactic police, fighting wars we never declared against enemies we barely understand." Director Walsh stood to respond, his face grim with the weight of intelligence reports from across the galaxy. "Senator, the Admiral's actions have had consequences beyond our projections. 17 species have formally requested alliance with humanity. The Galactic Trade Council has offered exclusive mining rights to strategic systems. 3 major powers have proposed mutual defense treaties." The chamber fell silent as Walsh activated the holographic display showing the current galactic political situation. More importantly, the Mordak horde has begun to fracture. Their tributary species are rebelling. Their subject worlds are declaring independence. Admiral Harrison hasn't just saved a few alien species. She's destabilized the largest predatory empire in this sector of the galaxy. Meanwhile, in the depths of space, the remnants of the Mordak High Command met aboard their last surviving command ship. War Chief Craxon studied intelligence reports with growing desperation. "The humans have destroyed our forward bases, liberated our tribute worlds, and turned our own slave soldiers against us," he growled to his assembled commanders. "How did we underestimate them so completely?" His intelligence chief, a scarred veteran of 100 conquests, spoke with uncharacteristic uncertainty. "War Chief, these humans fight unlike any species we have encountered. They show no fear of death, no concern for cost. They treat the protection of strangers as a sacred duty." Craxon slammed his massive fist against the command console. "They are just another weak species playing at heroism. We will rebuild our forces and crush them." But even as he spoke the words, Craxon knew they were hollow. The Mordak Empire was dying, destroyed not by a superior military force, but by humanity's refusal to accept that innocent people should suffer. On Zalani Prime, High Counselor Vexana stood in the reconstructed council chamber, addressing representatives from 43 species that had been saved by human intervention. "We gather today to formalize what has already become reality," she announced to the assembled delegates. "The Terran Federation shall be recognized as the protector of peaceful species throughout this sector of the galaxy." The vote was unanimous. When Admiral Harrison received word of the formal recognition, she was aboard the Dominion, preparing for another rescue mission. Captain Kane found her in her private quarters, staring at a holographic image of her daughter on Mars. "Congratulations, Admiral," he said quietly. "You've just become the founder of humanity's first galactic empire." Harrison shook her head. "Not an empire, Marcus. Something better. A promise that when innocent people cry out for help, someone will answer." She stood and moved to the viewport, where stars stretched endlessly into the dark. The galaxy is full of predators and prey, conquerors and victims, but now there's a third option. Now there are guardians. The Fifth Fleet continued its mission, carrying humanity's protection to every corner of space where it was needed. Behind them, they left not conquered worlds, but grateful allies. Not an empire built on fear, but a federation founded on hope. And across the galaxy, when peaceful species faced extinction and brutal empires threatened genocide, they no longer faced their fate alone. They looked to the stars and whispered a single word that had become synonymous with salvation: humans.